I'm Greta. Welcome to my channel. I have Eli Martyr here from the YouTube channel FreeMelon Society. And Eli is a 7-year fruitarian. And today we're going to have a great conversation about Eli and fruitarianism and all. He has a lot of knowledge about health, so all sorts of interesting health-related topics. So thank you, Eli. I really appreciate this. You've always been inspiring to me and fascinating. So I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, that's so kind of you. That is extremely flattering. Thank you so much. I really get caught not knowing to say with with accolades like that, and thank you. I really appreciate it, and really happy to be here. It's always great to, and I say the same thing very often. It's always great to have an opportunity to share this type of information with everybody, and whenever those opportunities come, we should always pounce on them. So yeah, I really appreciate you having me on your show, and looking forward to talking about whatever it is that we want to talk about.
Thank you. So I'm going to start out pretty basic because I'm pretty new to fruitarianism as well. And so for my viewers, and then hopefully get into some more interesting questions later on. So the first thing I want to ask you actually is, what is a fruitarian? What is a fruitarian? Is there an official definition of that, or would you be able to define it in some way?
That's a good question, because there's no actual scientific definition of fruitarian, right? That's more just a kind of colloquial term that we're putting on a dietary pattern that tends to describe what we do very well. It describes a person who is eating a species-specific diet, who is trying to or endeavoring to align the dietary lifestyle with the natural physiological anatomical endowments of the body. Okay, so a fruitarian is recognizing that humans are frugivorous eaters. A frugivore is a scientific definition that is a taxonomical. How do I say the word? Taxonomical.
I think so.
Taxonomy. The taxonomy is classifications. Okay. So yes, a frugivore is an actual trophic term. That designates one as an eater of primarily or ideally fruits. Okay, much like a lot of our anthropoid ape cousins. Okay. Mm-hmm. So these are all frugivores. They're primarily fruit eaters. So a fruitarian is someone who has recognized that we are frugivores by design. That's not an opinion. This is an objectively true fact. So fruitarians are simply trying to harmonize with that biological reality by eating predominantly raw fruits and other raw food only items in the diet. So a fruitarian's diet is going to be essentially fruits, or be made up of fruits, nuts and seeds, and leafy green vegetables. Only the foods that can be eaten in their raw, whole, unadulterated state, an unchanged, untampered with state from nature, right? So we are using the term fruitarian to describe people who are going after the majority of their diets being composed of fruit, because that's what's ideally suited to the diet of a frugivore, okay? Fruitarians, as an umbrella term, will express their fruitarian lifestyle in different ways. For me, it looks a lot more like an actual strict frugivore or a fruitarian, right? A more strict fruitarian. Strict is probably the wrong word to use, because that has a negative connotation associated with it, in the sense of restriction. There's no restriction that I'm feeling whatsoever. So that's the wrong word to use. The English language is very restrictive in that sense. Other fruitarians might include a lot more vegetable matter or nuts and seeds, but the common denominator is that we're targeting raw foods only, in their simplicity, or a more simplified version from what the conventional diet is in culture. And yeah, mostly fruits. 70, 80%, 90% fruit in the diet, and then the rest falls where it is with vegetables or nuts and seeds. So the answer is there's no actual scientific definition. That's more of a colloquialism. Fruitarian is, but frugivore is not. That is an actual designation for what a species eats.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that description, because it's so true. There's so many different people that call themselves fruitarians.
Yeah. It's and that it can be confusing, right? Like, I mean, you've seen the whole YouTube sphere of fruitarians that make up their diet in 1,000 different ways, right? So some fruitarians include cooked food in their diet as like a regular-ish staple. Is that a fruitarian? I don't know, but what I do know is that it's a word that most accurately describes, well, if I'm talking about myself, what I would do. Because if I say anything else, then that's misleading. If I say I'm a raw vegan, people won't get the right idea. They'll think I eat in a way that I don't, right? If I say mainly plant-based, that doesn't do the trick either, right? So fruitarian, as much as it's not an actual scientific term, it does tend to more accurately describe what I do, at least in my personal life. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Could we talk about how you got to the point you are now, what you eat in a day, and was it an overnight change, or was it something that happened over time? And if so, how long did that occur over?
Part of it was an overnight switch. Part of it was literally just boop and major lifestyle change. And then there was another component that was slightly more transitional in nature. So the part that was instantaneous was giving up all meat, all dairy, all animal products. That I literally turned into from a lifelong omnivorous eating person to a vegan, like overnight, like instantaneous. No transition, no nothing. It was just at that point, it had been really solidified in my mind that this was absolutely not the best way to live. It was hurting me. It was causing problems. And so with that motivation, when you know absolutely that you're doing something that's hurting you and there's no question anymore, it's really hard to kind of go back for the sake of taste pleasure. So that changed in a second. So okay, yeah, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, what were the health issues, or what were you addressing there when you decided to go vegan?
Yeah, that's a good question. So nothing that was hospital worthy, right? So nothing that was life threatening. Luckily, I didn't have to wait until I got to the life threatening variety of illnesses before I made this transition in my life. But a lot of just nagging things: chronic mucus, chronic sinusitis, asthma, chest congestion, allergies, dry skin. I had eczema, kind of dermatitis on my hands primarily. Like my hands got really dry. So a lot of nagging things like that. The most pressing were the asthma, the allergies, skin conditions on my hands, and chronic mucus and just runny, stuffy nose all the time. Like it was just intolerable, and I couldn't figure out why. That was the first major step that I took to rectifying that, and it helped a lot in alleviating a lot of those issues. That was the first major milestone. And then after that, I made more of a transition into making more and more of the diet coming in raw foods and less cooked foods. And it kind of refined itself more and more, where I was getting less complex, less stimulating, so less seasonings, less spices, and so on and so forth, until finally I got wind of the frugivorous nature of the human being, and then started to make that shift. I would say I was 7-8 years of being a vegan. Okay.
Wow.
In the latter portion of that, then it turned into mostly raw with some cooked. Okay. I also included a lot of fasting. Like my spiritual development I was starting to get really interested in my spiritual development during that time as well. So I was doing a lot of fasting and the occasional cleansing. So I would almost religiously, when I say religiously, I mean as a matter of a disciplined routine, not necessarily a religious thing, but every week end I would fast for a minimum of 36 hours. So that was my compensation for eating a fairly clean diet, but not a perfect diet, right? So as a way to kind of keep myself regular. So we're talking 7-8 years of doing a 36-hour fast every weekend with no compromise, right?
Wow.
And then I'm getting closer and closer to when I made the transition to what I'm doing now, a more fruitarian lifestyle. Then the nature of my food was less and less cooked, more and more raw. So a sample meal that I could give you in the latter portion of my vegan days would be a massive bowl, a huge bowl of, let's just say, all sorts of vegetables: lettuce, arugula, Swiss chard, some kale, so just all sorts of vegetables. Maybe some crushed up tomatoes as a sauce. Maybe some seasonings in there, some parsley, some oregano or whatever, and a cooked food element, one cooked food element. So potato, or on another day it would be all those veggies and lentils or split peas, right? So I would have a whole vat of veggies in the fridge, and I would just take from that massive repository of veggies, put it in a bowl, and then I would add any starch to that, and that would have been a sample meal.
Okay.
That I would eat in those days. Once I got into the more fruitarian lifestyle, then of course the cooked stuff came to an end, and then I started eating pretty much as I do now. Like the diet hasn't changed that much since the time I started doing a fruitarian lifestyle to now. It's mostly fruit, like, and I can describe that more as you ask me.
Okay.
I'm sure you have more questions.
Well, yeah. So if you have, does it vary on if you have a really physically active day or if you have more of a sedentary day? Or do you have a typical day that you mostly eat?
That's a good question. And because, like, I'll give you an example that doesn't really make sense. I recorded it yesterday. Okay, hold on. So yesterday was one of those days where I had a lot of physical activity. Okay, so moving around, doing some hand balancing, some gymnastics in the morning, simple acro that I can do here at home. Then later on in the afternoon, I went to an acro facility and just moving around for another hour and a half, 2 hours, just doing some tumbling, some calisthenics, a lot of activity that day. And on that day, I didn't eat for like the night previously. I ended eating around 4 o'clock, and I got in this bout of activity at the gym, maybe 22, 23 hours since my last meal. For the day when I got home, I had tomatoes. So a bowl of tomatoes, waited about half hour, and then a bowl of grapes and blueberries. So my total calorie intake for that day, which would have been yesterday, was probably around 400, 500 calories for a day of a lot of activity.
Wow.
Right? This is extremely unusual, very unusual for the health community at large. Everybody would look at that and say that is an inefficient diet for that day. You're going to kill yourself. That's not every day. Sometimes if we're talking about calorie content, and I really hate doing the calorie content thing because it's not the way we should be thinking about food at all. Your body is more magic than you know. And as long as we're responding to what we actually are called for via our sensitivities through our hunger drive, if your hunger drive goes down and you're physically active and you just simply don't want or are not called for food, who are we to say that that's wrong?
Yeah.
I think nature programmed us in a very ineffably intelligent way, that an intelligence that transcends any concept that we have about diet and nutrition, that we've examined from our very myopic view of only the plane of effects here on the physical world. No, nature's intelligence transcends all of that. And so your body is designed to give you and bring out to give you the best and bring out the best in you. And your sensitivities are designed in a particular way to lead you to that goal. So, in saying all of that, if you have reformed yourself and have cleaned up the diet and the body becomes more efficient so that it can use more from less, and it feels good and it feels right and it feels clean, how the heck am I going to put a judgment on that? My job would just simply be to respond to that intelligent cue coming from inside.
Yeah.
So at least that's how I see it. Now, that being said, not all my days look like that. There will be days where I have a lot of activity and I'll be downing 1,500 calories, 1,800 calories. So it depends. It depends on what I want to eat that day. If I want to eat more jackfruit and durian, for example, which are a lot more concentrated than tomatoes. Like you could eat, oh my God, you could eat a barrel full of tomatoes like this and get through maybe 200, 300 calories because they're so calorie dilute, tomatoes, full of water. And so it fills you right up and your belly's full and you've barely eaten anything calorie wise. But then you have some the equivalent of jackfruit, and now you've packed away like 3,000 calories or whatever. So it depends. But on average, yeah, we're looking at, if I'm trying to find an average here, 1,500, 1,200, 1,700 calories around there. But it's hard to tell because I don't actually actively measure this because this is not something I think about. This is not a stress that I have in my life. I'm not approaching my diet with any real caloric worry. I'm only responding to what I want to eat and what makes sense in terms of my natural palate and my natural relationship to food, which aligns itself with fruit. If we eliminate all the complexities that muddy our filter of how to assess what food is and what food isn't.
Something that just came to mind to me, and I don't know if you've ever had any thoughts about this, but was so many people have difficulty transitioning or adopting an all fruit lifestyle. And did you ever think that maybe the fact that you had a pretty healthy lifestyle leading up until that point, and even that transition where you were largely raw, assisted you in being comfortable entering an all fruit lifestyle? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it did my previous lifestyle help me be able to be more consistent with what I do now, essentially? Yeah. The answer is yes, 100%. The easiest way, and I should try to be a bit more concise and just make my answers a bit shorter. But health and wellness it's the momentum principle. It's a snowball. Picture it as a snowball. It's if you start it rolling down the hill, then you want to keep it at a nice slope, at a consistent slope, so that it gradually builds up speed, size, and just keeps effortlessly rolling down the hill at the mercy of gravity. All right. Any hiccups or bumps that you introduce onto the road will simply slow down the ball and make it kind of labor to get to the next little precipice where it can start to roll down again. So those little interruptions in the downward slope are our adulterated lifestyle habits, right? The little things that we do here or there, the night out binge drinking, that cheat meal that we always like to include, whatever it is. So consistency is the key. It's just like the fitness. Fitness makes a very good analogy because it's just like fitness in the sense that the key to being healthy and well over time and maintaining a good aesthetic look, a good fitness level over time is just consistency. It doesn't even matter how infrequently or how do I say this? It doesn't even matter if your intensity is fairly low. What matters is the consistency over time. That's what's important. And diet and health and wellness is the same thing. So what I'm saying is, because my lifestyle was generally oriented in a healthy way prior to that, that allowed me to get the snowball rolling. And then when it came time for me to make the more radical, I don't like using that word, but the more radical transition to what I'm doing now, I already had a snowball that was rolling down the hill with pretty good speed. It wasn't much stress to just take it to the next level, and I already had a lot of health momentum building up. So if that helps as a visual, then yeah, I would keep it with that. So yes, absolutely. The more healthy practices that we can get accustomed to and make habitual in our lives, the easier time we will have in further subsequent cleansing endeavors that we make in our lifestyle.
That's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I want to ask, how that changed your life. I know that veganism helped you a lot. And then what were the changes that you saw after you became fruitarian? Just one last thing. In thinking about this question that I wanted to ask you, I was thinking about John Rose, another YouTuber, and he talks about moving, everybody can live in this paradise, being fruitarian. And is that the way that you see it and describe it? Yeah, just wanted to add that.
Yeah, okay.
Because he's his descriptive terms are interesting.
Yes, very much so. And regardless of where you go in human history, you can peruse the depths of human history, both ancient, prehistory. You're always going to find a record in our literature, okay, in our literature of all ancient cultures and civilization. You will always find a reference to some sort of golden age, where humans lived in perfect harmony and perfect resonance with their environment, where they ate only the natural fruits and vegetables of the land and lived without aging, without health encumbrances, without disease, and everything was just wonderful. Virtually every culture has some sort of enshrined record where they revere this golden age of lifestyle, of eating and lifestyle. So it's interesting. And it doesn't matter how geographically segregated these cultures are, they all have the same story. So reasonably, we would have to be compelled to be curious about that, right? Like, where does that come from? Without getting into that, okay, so your other question is, how has my life changed? Am I correct? How has that changed?
Yeah, especially now after 7 years,
Yeah. Oh gosh. Lots of things, Greta. Lots of things. God, where do you even start? I mean, you are oh boy, you are making a fundamental change to your lifestyle. Like you are taking your comfortable lifestyle and you are throwing it into the furnace, and you are essentially doing this alchemical transmutation process where you're burning away everything that was useless to you and not serving you, and distilling and refining, and then taking those products and just trying to extract only the elements of truth from all this dross that constituted the lifestyle previous. So with such a fundamental change in the life, of course, everything will change. Your relationships to people and your friends will change. Your relationships to your family will change. The customs and habits that you were familiar with, all of these will change. Your personal energy field that you broadcast into the world, this is fundamentally changed. Of course, it has to. Everything changes. Some things the average person might see as a negative change, as an adverse change. I don't personally see them like that, but in terms of like the social aspect, right? So how your relationship to food culture changes. Some people might see that as disadvantageous. I see it as inordinately liberating, incredibly liberating. But that's another thing. So I want to actually answer your question. So how has my life changed because of this lifestyle? I could talk about the health related things first. Congestion, the chest congestion, that went away. Okay, that's slowly got chipped away at until finally one day I didn't notice it anymore. I went for that first run, and then usually after a run or a jog, I would have like pain in my chest or tightness.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day I noticed that that was gone. I'm like, oh my God, I can breathe. This is incredible, right? So excited. So that changed. Allergies to cats and horses, that drastically changed. Cats and horses didn't bother me anymore. Sorry, cats and dogs did not bother me anymore. So now I can hang around cats and dogs, no trouble. Horses was a very strong allergy for me growing up as a kid and as an adult. And now I can actually be around horses and I'll be fine. I don't know what would happen if I were to literally pry open my eyeballs and rub it on the horse's back and lick the horse's tail. Like, okay, I don't know what would happen if I went that crazy, but yeah, I can be around horses. Like, I work in film. I'm a stuntman. I'm a professional stuntman, if people don't know. So I've been working in film for quite a while now. So when I say my allergy to horses is gone, I can be around horses on set and perform with them and everything and no problems, which is something I could not do before. Skin cleared up. Skin everywhere cleared up. The eczema or psoriasis, whatever it was on my hands, that cleared up. I had it for years. I never thought I would see it go away to the extent that it has now, but very happily it has. So that is another thing that changed. Body odors completely left. All body odors, whether it's the regular gym BO that you normally hear about, whether it's toilet odors, all of them, all offensive odors.
What about your breath when you wake up in the morning?
Same thing. You don't really get these types of foul odors anymore. And the reason you don't is because if you don't put into your body what putrefies and what rots and what only digests very cleanly, whose byproducts are just very simple fiber and water, right? And carbon dioxide. If you're eating only things that give off those byproducts, you are not going to have these offensive odors, whether it's your breath, whether it's the matter that you excrete into the toilet, right? Whether it's your urine, whether it's your sweat, none of these things smell, right? So it might seem arrogant to say, but that common expression, don't pretend like your crap don't stink. It's like, yeah, crap doesn't stink. What do you want me to do? It's just the truth. Odors go away. That's fantastic. Like, I mean, that's a superpower. I mean,
yeah.
Human beings don't understand to recognize that you're not emitting foul odors anymore. Like, I mean, you can't, the sense of cleanliness that comes over you and comes over your mind, it's just, I wish I could let people feel what that's like. So that it's incredible. It really is. And it's such a simple thing, but that's another one of the changes that I experienced. I talked about the mucus congestion. That all cleared away. All the extra mucus and excess mucus that my body was producing in order to dilute poisons and waste products that I was taking into the diet from my lifestyle, from my food. I talked about the mucus congestion. That all cleared away. All the extra mucus and excess mucus that my body was producing in order to dilute poisons and waste products that I was taking into the diet from my lifestyle, from my food. All of the mucus that your body produces in response to waste products that you're producing, all that mucus goes away. So your channels of respiration become so clear and clean, and it's this sigh, a breath of relief. It's a real breath of relief. So everything just became really like you can breathe very, very clearly through both nostrils, both channels, and as long as I continue to eat that way, I'll always have these clean tubes. And it's very reassuring to know exactly what causes the stuffiness, right? Because if you don't know what causes, you're lost to make all the mistakes over and over, and you'll never be the wiser. But as soon as you can identify the cause, then it's great, because it gives you consistency. It gives you sure footing to be able to stay on the right track, right? So yeah, my cardiovascular system, it felt like it just got fumigated and cleaned out so that there weren't any encumbrances left. That doesn't mean to say that I will never ever have a stuffier nose. If I eat something that's less ideal, I'll be able to tell. Like I can tell, I'm like, oh, a little bit more mucusy today. Still nothing like some people are experiencing, but I'll notice a difference, because your system becomes very, very sensitive to infractions and to offenses, which is something that you want. If I'm looking back to my adolescent self, where I was eating anything goes, I'm half Italian, so I'm coming from the grand Italian cuisine. Everything, the pastas, the lasagnas, the pizzas, the meatballs, the seasonings, the spices, all of it, right? And all at the same time and the same meal, just a digestive nightmare, okay, every single day for dinner. So if we're talking about me in that state, then yeah, the wrong combination of food, you might not even notice it back then. But now, if I eat something that's less ideal, it's so cool. Like you can tell, you can feel it. Like you said, in the morning when you have, okay, do I have bad breath in the morning, right? In the morning, you would feel a difference. Like you would feel, my throat is a little bit drier today, a little bit more dehydrated, or I feel just a little bit more, these fine fluctuations you can attribute to what you ate. And it's good because you have this very accurate feedback system now that helps align you with what you should be doing, or what at least makes you feel the best, what brings out the best health in you.
I was going to ask if it impacted your mood, and then, obviously weight is something, a weight change I know is something you experienced. And then I was also curious about just like your mood and your mental well-being.
100%, 100%. And again, how could it not, right? The character of your body, of your physical tissues, are all being replaced by the material that you furnish your body with eventually in time. So these things have to impact your thinking, your mood, your emotions, right? I think the most profound change that I can talk about is the stimulating nature of things that are coming into the diet that are now no longer there. So I'm now no longer artificially stimulating my metabolism into heights of excitation that the old stimulating diet might have done. So in the absence of all of these stimulating dietary elements, what you find now is that you become extremely calm. Your metabolism isn't ramped up on fire. It's just smooth and clean, right? You're at this wonderful baseline of high energy that you can do what you want with, right? Yeah. So whatever it is that I need to do in the day, I can do that and tackle that with this great level of consistent energy, right? It feels so great. You're not getting these crashes. These are things that are foreign to my life. Oh, I had a crash. I don't know what that is. Like these things, these general problems of humanity, they start to become things of the past that you just don't even you don't have anything to do with anymore. I'll really quickly say, sorry, getting sick. That's another incredible advantage. I talk about it all the time. I don't get sick. It seems that I'm impervious to colds, flus, headaches, all of the regular things that people think are just normal that you have to go through, no, that's not true. I don't see any of it, none of it, right? Literally, over 7 years now, I have still yet to develop so much as a cold. It just doesn't happen. Why is that, right? So, okay, you were about to say something. I think I interrupted you.
Oh, that's okay. I was interrupting you too. I
Oh.
wanted to mention, I think you mentioned that you lost weight in the first month of changing. Can you talk about that?
The weight loss is probably one of the first things that people would notice if they're making any kind of shift in any kind of dietary reform in the direction of a raw food lifestyle. Okay, so weight loss is probably one of the first things that's going to happen. So when I went fruitarian, then yes, I lost a good deal of weight, a surprising amount of weight fairly quickly. And what was very surprising about it was that I wasn't fat. I was never fat. I always looked very much like I am now, but I was just a bigger dude, like bigger, thicker muscles, but still very lean and still very defined, like no discernible fat on me.
Wow.
Right? So I knew that the weight that I lost. So let's talk about the end of. I've gone 2 weeks now. Let's just say at the end of a 2 week period of eating only fruit. Okay. At the end of these 2 weeks, I've lost close to 10 pounds of weight.
Wow.
By doing nothing. By doing nothing. Right. This is not exercise. This is not. You can't attribute it to anything like that. Right. I've been exercising my whole life. Never lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks, right? The hell is that? So I'm still exercising during this period. It's not that like I stopped exercising. The only thing that changed was the character of the diet that was coming into my mouth. Okay. That's probably not a great way to say it. The stuff that I was eating. I'm going to blush. So I knew that it couldn't be muscle loss because muscle doesn't waste like that. Muscle just doesn't waste for no reason. If you're eating, period, and you are exercising, your body's just not going to destroy your muscle mass. So I knew that it wasn't muscle that was being lost. I also knew that it wasn't necessarily all this fat because I didn't have any discernible, visible fat. Where was this fat? I looked just like I do now, right? Wow. I was lean and defined. So I'm like, it leaves me wondering, what the hell is this weight that's coming off of me? It's so strange. The weight that was coming off of me was water weight and excess fat that was stored inside my muscle tissue and all of the waste products. It was also digestive stuff trapped in the colon or in the intestines, right? Just extra riffraff, undigested proteins and undigested fats and elements of residues of cooked foods, oily cooked foods, just stuff trapped in your system. That's where all this weight was coming from. So it was those waste products, excess water weight, all right, that your body had to hold on to in order to dilute those things. Salts, like salt will do that. Salt will make you retain water. This is something common that we all are familiar with. And then intramyocellular lipids, right? So fats that are stored actually inside your muscles that on the outside might not look like fat, but because they're trapped in the muscle, so they actually make your muscles a bit more puffy, and it's not real actual lean muscle tissue. It's just this filler on the inside, kind of like a dietary supplement is not all nutrition. It's a bunch of filler and crap too to cut down on their costs, right? So I was losing all this weight, and it was very surprising, but I didn't freak out over it, and I just accepted it. I said, I am an idiot compared to the intelligence of my body. I'm just gonna let Mother Nature do what she has to do. If that interferes with my subjective, egotistic preference for what my body should look like, I don't care. All right, my health is going to be more important than how I look to other people. And so I was willing to have the, have the gall, have the discipline to just put my ego in check and let my body respond to what was happening. And that's what I did. And yeah, in a short period of time, I've lost 10, 15 pounds that came from nowhere. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. It was one of the most fascinating periods in my life, just watching this change happen. And, from a person who was already fit and healthy, right? It's just like, oh my God, what is happening? So, yeah.
And then I just wanted to quickly talk about just your energy, and you're a stuntman and your career. Did this have a positive impact on your career, your relationship with work? Was that changed at all once you became fruitarian?
Yes, it did. It did help my film work because what it did was, okay, it allowed me to be a lot more comfortable on set, not constantly having to eat.
Wow.
Right? To sustain myself throughout the day on set. Yeah. So it allowed me to go through now long, ridiculously long. Like, guys, if you think you have long work hours, man, there are no such work hours like film work hours. Like you'll pull 16-hour days, 18-hour days sometimes. Like it can be fairly ridiculous, right?
Wow.
So this lifestyle, what it did was it started to develop a much more efficient system, a much more efficient body, body that was a lot happier not eating than I used to be, right? And a lot more comfortable simply not eating and having sustained energy, even if there's not food immediately coming in every 2 hours or whatever. Prior to that, you would need snacks or whatever to keep you going throughout the day. And on set, there's only so many options available for you that are healthy. On set, catering is always giving you catering food. So it's all these nonsense snacks, chips and granola bars and whatever. Just so one way that this really helped was it allowed me to be comfortable a day on set, either bringing food from home, so a bunch of grapes or some mangoes or some tomatoes, and that's my food for the day, or I simply just don't make any preparations and I just don't eat at all throughout my whole shift, and then eat when I get home or eat the next day. Easy. So in that sense, it was fantastic for my career. Were there any disadvantages? I don't know if there were any disadvantages. There was a period of fluctuation now where my headshots and my dimensions were changing and fluctuating. So it was hard to fit me in as a stunt double for people that I would use, that for body shapes that I would normally have been able to stunt double for. Now all of a sudden I can't stunt double those people anymore, right? Like there was a period of time where I was being considered as a stunt double for Vin Diesel, right? That changed drastically once I started making these modifications in my life. So now it's just like, okay, there was this period where I didn't really know where to fit myself in, and coordinators didn't really know what to make of it. They see me show up one day and like, oh my God, Eli, what happened? You lost all this weight. It's like, so. But what ended up happening was now once my body stabilized at the weight that I'm at now, now I'm just stunt doubling for a different type of person instead of who I was before. So that changed, but it's not like it was a negative impact. It was just a transition, a change. So
yeah, that's really interesting. Another big question is, could you talk a little bit more about why fruit is the ideal food for humans? Is there an ethical reason to that? So many people, I guess part of the reason why I'm asking is because for you seem like, Superman. To me, like the way you transitioned, it was so elegant. Whereas, myself and a lot of people have struggled with that. Yeah. So is it the best diet for everybody? Do some people do better on different kinds of food? I think I'm asking you 3 questions in one question.
No, I get your question. Just want to get the right way to the right way to formulate that answer. Okay, let's start with, is this right for everybody? Okay, let's go with that first. Yes. Just general ballpark answer. Yes, it is right for everybody, but there's a lot of context here that adds and serves as confounding factors that interfere with your natural relationship to food. Okay, these confounding factors run so deep in our genetic memory that they can start to convince us that we're something that we're not. All right, so if you're a human being, you can't escape the fact that you are a human being, that you are designed like a human being, where all human beings have a very similar structure that we cannot escape from, no matter how hard we try, no matter how well we delude ourselves. Okay. Now, that being the case, if you fit yourself in some geographical location on the planet where you don't have access to your natural habitat, your natural fruit abundant habitat, the tropics, okay, any place where there are palm trees, then what you have to do is you have to make amends, right? You have to find some other means of subsistence, and it probably will include other things that are not fruit because you have no choice. But that's a peculiar human thing that humans have done, because humans, unlike other animals, have the ability to make the extremely silly decision to move outside of our natural habitat. Imagine a shark making the decision that it wants to live in outer space. This is the stupidest decision that a shark could possibly make. Why on earth would it do that? Humans can make these silly decisions, though, because we have the amazing conscious ability to alter our environment, to drastically change our environment to suit our preferences, rather than find an environment that is suitable to what we're designed for. I'm getting to the question, so just bear with me. So humans over time, because of this ability to leave our natural habitat, again, something that is not seen in nature. All organisms live in their natural habitat, because to do otherwise is to die, is to spell disaster for the species. So no one does it except human beings. Okay. So because we have done that in our past, what has happened is we've introduced this veil of confusion between us and our natural instincts. And it's weakened our sensitivities. It's adulterated our palates. It's changed things over time. And it has caused us to not be able to recognize what our natural food sensitivities are. But we are all human beings. So you can't change this. And the natural instincts make themselves known to you in your lifestyle, regardless of what type of diet you're eating. So, is this diet right for everybody? At the core essential level, yes, because how could it not be? You're a human being. All species have a species-specific diet. There's nothing you can do about that. If you have a problem with it, complain to God. I can't do anything about that. What we can do is recognize that truth and reality and try to harmonize it with it, or we can fight against it, and that usually doesn't work out very well. So, okay, back to the question, is this right for everybody? Now we can say, with that extra little bit of context, no, it's not right for everybody, because we have all of these things that have interfered with that relationship, that natural relationship with food. And now we have to be very strategic and slow and delicate in changing things so that we can get back to that natural relationship that we have with food and fruit in a way that isn't so drastic and sharp and harsh that causes us to be dissuaded. So the transitional principle, gradualism is the way to approach these changes. So we've adulterated our sensitivity so much and brutalized our sensitivity so much that now what tends to work out best is a more gradual transition back home to our innate relationship to food. So that can take some time, and there are all these influences from our diet, from our lifestyle, from our culture, from society, from media. All of these things are are just globs of mud that are thrown in front of our face that hide us from being able to see and to perceive our natural diet. So we're trying to get rid of all of this riffraff so that we can actually have the right relationship with our food. So is it right for everybody? No, because of the confounding factors that we've introduced into humanity from time immemorial. And that is a lot of damage that can take time to rectify. But is this the natural food for human beings? Unquestionably, yes. No giraffe is out there saying, I should be eating sushi burritos because this makes me feel better as a giraffe. No, that would be a very stupid giraffe, right?
Yeah. I've been back and forth. I've had periods where I've been fruitarian and then been back and forth with things and struggled myself. The periods that I have been successful, I experienced the freedom from colds, coughs, any sort of allergies. I don't have a lot of health issues, but yeah. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts. It seems like there's a lot of, like, have you heard of Dr. McDougall? He's a vegan guy, Starch Solution. Yeah. So he's done a lot of research on heart disease, atherosclerosis, and recommends people eat mostly starch and vegetables, and that can reduce the risk of heart disease. He's just very prolific in his research and I guess the scientific information he's put out there. So it seems like to me, fruitarianism is just that step further that really can give you the best chance of being in ideal health. Do you have any thoughts as to why there aren't more people that are out there doing studies, or maybe they're just not as vocal? I haven't seen them, or just it doesn't seem as prolific as other, I guess, science that's been presented along with veganism, which I also think is great. But did you have any thoughts about that?
I love John McDougall. He's actually one of my favorite lecturers, favorite educators. I listen to all his stuff. He's amazing. In fact, in most of the health consultations that I make, very often I'm referring people to some sort of John McDougall style starch solution type of diet, because for people making a transition into a healthier plant-based diet, this is like that approach is indispensable. Like, we need that approach for people to slowly get out of the old, really, really adulterated habits that have been plaguing us for forever, really, like forever, right? And so he's a fantastic lecturer. I highly recommend, if anybody is eating the conventional standard Canadian, American, Australian, European diet, if you're anywhere in that ballpark, eating the cereals and the wheat products and the meats and the dairies and the pizzas, all this stuff, John McDougall's approach is going to get you a lot healthier, and we need that. You said it beautifully. What we're doing here with my approach is the same thing. It's the same progressive evolution of further and further refinement to a cleaner, healthier, more wholesome diet, where you start to see that cooking food, as much as a healthy person can include cooked food elements in the diet and still remain an extremely healthy person, it still is an undeniable fact that anybody with reasonable intelligence must come to, that it can't be the intention of nature to have to cook food before it's eaten. It can't be. It just can't be, right? Mother Nature did not curse human beings to be the one sole species that finds food on the savannah or on the plains or on the bushes, and then for some reason is stricken with this inconvenience of having to cook it, find some sort of fire source that burns with the intensity of the sun, and you have to leave it there for half an hour on end. You have to find water to boil it. No, nature did not design you to have to do that just to eat. It wants you to just find your food and bloody eat it, just like everything else on the planet that is alive. So reasonable intelligence has to conclude that cooking is not a natural thing. It's or at least it's not the intention of nature, right? So what we're doing is we're simply taking that same approach to plant-based eating, and we're taking it to the next logical, very logical level of refinement that results in greater health. That's it. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's not an area of condemnation. There's no major disagreements between these two approaches. It's just that one is the continuing evolution of another.
Yeah.
If you're asking me. Now, the second part of your question is, why don't you see more people doing this? Right?
Like the John McDougall of fruitarianism that just focuses on the research benefits of fruitarianism versus a cooked vegan diet. Because for me, the reason that I ask, or I'm curious about this, is because I see a big difference in myself between a cooked vegan diet and a fruitarian diet. There's a massive improvement in my well-being.
Okay, so why don't we find other similarly prolific approaches to
research, or people really putting it out there from a scientific perspective, I guess.
Okay, I see. Okay, yes. Reason number one is because this type of approach is not in the best interest of the massive food industry that drives the market, or that drives the economy. The vast majority of science is going to have some sort of business interest that wants the science to prove some sort of result. The best studies are only going to be funded by some source that wants the science to credit a particular approach that is good for the economy, that is good for business. So the vast majority of the science is going to be some sort of commercial science, right? Mm-hmm. There's not much of an advantage in convincing the population or having the population remember that the best health is gained by doing nothing from food culture. That is not good for business, right? It's not good for the economy. This is why there's it seems to be this lack of research in this area, is because it's simply not as good for market economy as everything else. So we do have a lot of studies that show the advantages of fruit and vegetables, but we don't have studies that examine a fruitarian lifestyle as nobody is out there saying, okay, what happens when someone eating only fruit for 5 years adds vegetables, or as opposed to someone who's eating all fruit with a little bit of starch, like these types of specific. Nobody's going to be doing these anytime soon. All right. Hopefully I'm wrong, but it's not going to happen as much. You're much more likely to find something that examines the effect of maybe fruit pectin as a supplement. What are the effects on colitis with the intake of a fruit pectin supplement, as opposed to, okay, now that's different because now we're talking about supplements in an industry that wants to sell you supplements, right? So you find that kind of stuff, but it's harder to come by the science that really would interest people like yourself and myself, because that's not the direction food culture really wants to go in. This is the thing. It requires a cultural shift, right? A mindset shift, a paradigm shift in refocusing and reorienting on what food and health and wellness actually is, before we'll start to see a spillover in the scientific research world. But right now, the science is basically supporting culture. Yeah. So that's why you don't really see as much of this in the scientific world. You do find that there are some studies out there. There were some recent studies. There were 2012. There was a 2012 study that dealt with asthma and fruit and vegetable intake, right?
Wow.
And showed that there's definitely an improvement in
Wow.
asthma with fruit and vegetable intake. There was a 2014 study from the University College of London, UCL, and they showed like a 25 to 31% reduction in mortality, all-cause mortality, like cancer, heart disease, the big disease threats that we come across. And these were all reduced with an intake or increasing the intake of fruit and vegetables, right? So we have some recent studies that look into the advantages of eating plant-based for sure, but we don't really have anything that is specific to a fruitarian approach. No, that you don't really find as much in the literature, because it's just not where the cultural mindset is at.
Yeah, and there's True North Health Center. I think that's a water fasting center that McDougall is related to, and they're now starting to do studies on the benefits of water fasting. And not that you can live off of water, but maybe fruit is somewhere on the lines. It's just more cleansing than a cooked food vegan diet. And it's in between water, even though you can't live off water. But I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing, is that we do have studies that look at fasting. So there are more studies with the actual like fasting than we do with just fruit eating.
Yeah.
And that becomes a very compelling body of research. We know absolutely that you can extend the lifespan of rats, at least, or other animals by reducing their calorie intake, right? So like more severe calorie restriction without necessary malnourishment will extend the lifespan of an organism. Like we know that's pretty damn provable now. So we've seen the benefits of fasting. We know fasting is like rest, right? It's the rest principle. We know that when you go to sleep in the evening, you wake up and you're rejuvenated. When you fast, you are simply affording your digestive chemistry and digestive anatomy and digestive physiology rest. So when they wake up on the other side of the fast by eating, they are more rested, so they are rejuvenated and they're able to tackle on the new challenge of absorbing food and nutrition with more vigor. It's the rest principle. So we know this is the case, and we have lots of studies on fasting now. So that's very promising to see the scientific world kind of corroborate this very ancient, old understanding, intuitive understanding about.
I also wanted to ask you about supplementation. Do you supplement with B12? Do you think it's healthy to use a multivitamin? I've heard that there are even studies that say it could be dangerous to take in such concentrated nutrients in a multivitamin. What are your thoughts on supplementation?
You bastard. Trying to get me in trouble with the health community. Yes. I don't supplement. No. I don't use supplements.
And do you take your levels? Do you take a blood test? I don't do a blood test, but do you personally elect to like check your levels or anything like that, or you just go by how you feel?
I have taken blood tests before, but it's not something that I'm in the habit of doing. Just because there seem to be so many other more direct evidences and indications of health that are very, very good feedback systems as to whether you're doing something right. But let me unpack that a little bit. No, I don't use supplements, but obviously we should say kind of why we come to that decision. The thing is with supplementation is that one of the reasons people do it, or one of the main reasons people do it, is because the idea is that what we're doing with supplementation is that we're investing in ourselves, right? We're hedging our bets against the future possibility of a nutrient deficiency. That's what we're doing with supplementation, right? So we think, okay, because soil depletion or whatever other reason that we might come up with, we're not getting the nutrition that we need from food, so we're going to supplement, and then we're going to hedge our bets against the future possibility of some sort of deficiency. That's why we're supplementing. The problem with doing that is that it's inherently dangerous, like you said, because supplementation involves a company artificially concentrating and isolating nutrition that is in quantities and proportions that are so drastically different from the concentrations that Mother Nature has intelligently designed to package in foods, that those concentrations and balances are going to be so off when you use any kind of supplement, that you're going to disrupt your body's ability to adequately absorb and utilize the nutrition from supplements, if it even can do that in the first place. Because Mother Nature does not, your body does not want to see isolated chemistry coming down the pipe. It doesn't know what that is. It's like if you're a bouncer at a nightclub and all of a sudden a magic shoe just kind of walks itself up to the front door and tries to get in. That's weird as hell. What kind of voodoo magic is that? It's just a bloody shoe. And the shoe with some voice that it doesn't have, I don't know, it says, hey, let me into the club. The bouncer's going to be like, what? It's going to be weirded out. The bouncer's going to be like, I don't know what a shoe is. What the hell is a shoe? It's just this talking shoe. It's weird. It's scary, right? So the bouncer is not going to readily accept the shoe into the club and say, yeah, come on in, shoe. Yeah, it's great. It's fine. It's just talking, moving shoe into the nightclub, whatever. Right? No bouncer's going to do that. They're going to call for help, or you're going to ask, what the hell is this talking magic shoe? It's because a shoe is just one element of what makes up a human being. And when this shoe tries to get into the nightclub, it's confusing for the guardians at the gate. They don't know what it is. They're not seeing an entire organic thing. So when your body sees isolated chemistry coming down the chute, that is not an apple, it's not a pear, it's not a mango, it's not a nut or a seed, it's not a grain, it's not a vegetable, or whatever food you're eating. All it sees is this isolated bit of chemistry. Your body says, I have no idea what that is. That's a part of a food, but it's not a food. I don't know what to do with it. It's weird. So it treats it as a foreign invader. It treats it as something bizarre, just like a bouncer at a nightclub would treat a talking shoe as an invader, something weird, right? That you have to throw up your defenses and be like, I don't know what to make of this shoe that wants to get in, just like all the other regular human patrons of this nightclub. So supplementation can be dangerous, right? And we have studies like you alluded to this. We have the classic beta carotene studies, right? Where it's a carotenoid. There are like over 700 carotenoids that we get from our diet. Like hundreds and hundreds of these elements that are coming into the diet, hundreds of them, right? And beta carotene is just one of them. So we've recognized that beta carotene is healthy to take into our diet. But when we take it in the form of a supplement, it hurts you. It's pathological, right? And we had the studies to prove this. We thought that beta carotene would improve the lung function of, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was people with respiratory illness. It didn't work. We made them worse. It's not the only supplement that does that. The vitamin D supplements will make you worse. We have the classic beta carotene ones that I just mentioned. There's an inherent danger in supplementation in that it floods your system with isolated elements that are in concentrations so far above what your body naturally wants to take in, that your body has to now find a way to balance out this whole whack of nutrition that came in from this arbitrarily constructed human form. So there are problems. There are problems with supplementation that are difficult for me personally to trust. Now, if people are comfortable with supplementation, then do it for sure. I will say also that there are some uses for supplementation. There are instances where supplementation is going to be helpful. So I can't paint this with a broad stroke and say all supplementation is bad, is evil. No, I can't say that, because we know that there are those cases where someone is dealing with some sort of very critical deficiency or dealing with some sort of ailment that requires a temporary boost in nutrition, and it does help them. So like an influx of vitamin C might help someone get back on their feet. But the thing to remember with supplementation is we don't want to be getting to a place where we're relying on supplementation. We want to be able to have our bodies become efficient and strong and well enough to be able to absorb everything that we need from our food, where we are not relying on artificial supplementation and artificially concentrated, isolated nutrients. Because, again, we also have to recognize that we know that that's not how it was designed to be. We know that we're still here as human beings after thousands of years. And we know that supplementation was not a part of our evolutionary past. When I say evolutionary, I just mean our developmental past as human beings. This is a relatively new field. This is what vitamin and mineral supplementation started in the 50s. Like this is so new. And we don't know what we're doing. We've got companies that want to make money that are splicing together nutrition, buying science. They're buying science to support this endeavor, and we're packaging things in arbitrary human concentrations to satisfy whatever superstition we come. This is dangerous. This is dangerous. Forgive me, but I trust an apple way more than a supplement created by some company that wants to make money off it.
Yeah, I think you put it really well. And I hope we don't get in any trouble.
We will. We will. We'll get in trouble. I know I'll be probably taken out of context with this. I know that people will have a problem with it.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, you're just saying it's a processed food, basically.
Yes.
It's a highly concentrated.
Yes, it is. And it does have its utility, just like lots of non-food related items or more unnatural approaches to health and cleansing. They have their use, they have their utility. So we can't dismiss it all with a blanket, in a blanket statement and say it's all bad. I think there are definitely uses and ways to intelligently use supplementation, but I think that's the thing. It has to be intelligently used, and it's not something that you want to make a lifestyle routine out of. With all of them, even B12 as well. The last time I had blood tests, and this is years into my fruitarian lifestyle, my B12 levels were fine, even though I haven't had a source of B12 in long before I went fruitarian. Like, I haven't had a B12 source in meat products in like way over 10 years, way over a decade, right? So, and my B12 levels were fine with never any supplementation. Oh, sorry. No, okay. There was one period of time where I experimented with, I think it was a liquid, like a green, it was like a combination of chlorophyll and B12 or something. I think I used that supplement twice and then I threw it away. I'm like, this isn't doing crap. I don't care. No, I'm just going to keep eating food. Like it just didn't resonate with me. So that's a lie. Okay, yes, I have used a B12 supplement for a fraction of a period of time in my life. But besides that, that's it. I think I used it for like 2 doses on like a couple different days, and it's like, no, this isn't for me. I don't want this anymore. Yeah.
Well, everybody should make their own decisions.
Yes.
Choices.
Yes. Yeah. Do your own research. Don't take my word for it. Don't take our word for it. Do your own research. See what resonates with you. And if this makes sense, makes intuitive sense, then great. I have a hard time. I have a hard time not recognizing that relying on supplementation is diametrically opposed to every single example of life on planet Earth. Millions of examples of life on planet Earth who have no recourse for supplementation. I find it difficult to accept that we need to do this. Now, playing devil's advocate to myself, the reason that we would say that we need to do this is because we have destroyed our environment, we've destroyed our soils. We live in this ultra toxic world that is no longer natural. And so we need supplementation in order to accommodate or account for the damage that we've done to it. That makes sense. It does make sense to me. But the thing is, we would really only run into trouble if we're eating one particular type of food from one particular geographic area. And most of us don't really do that, right? Most of us are eating food from a pretty wide variety of places, and plants aren't dumb. Even if we have less mineral concentration in our soil, if a crop is growing, if a plant is growing, if a fruit is being produced, it's being produced because it can and it has the ability to be produced. And it wouldn't do that if it didn't have the bare essentials to produce that fruit. Like a banana or an apple, it's not going to grow if it doesn't have at least a bare minimum of nutrition that Mother Nature has seen as appropriate for the growth of that thing. If it weren't possible, it wouldn't grow. So if it does grow, you're getting at least a substantial amount of nutrition that is good. Now, if you vary that by eating from a fairly wide variety of different crops from different soils, you're more than likely going to be fine. If you want to be safe and you want to, like if you're living way up north or way down in the south, and you're feeling not great because the sunlight is just, and you want to take like a vitamin D, take very, very, very small doses of vitamin D supplement, as vitamin D supplement. You don't want to overload your system with that, even though I don't think there are clinically dangers of taking too much vitamin D, if I'm not mistaken. But B12, if you feel safer, like if your mind is put at ease with a vitamin B12 supplement, that's a different thing, right? Because now we're talking about people injecting anxiety and stress into the picture if they don't supplement. Like that is the danger in itself, is the stress and the anxiety that we impose on ourselves. That is very toxic. So if you harbor that stress and anxiety as a result of not supplementing, and taking a supplement puts you at ease, then I would say take the supplement, because I don't want you stressed and anxious, because that is pathological. So now that becomes the danger. It's not as much the supplement anymore. Mm-hmm. I'd rather you be on a B12 supplement and be happily floating through life, rather than not taking a supplement and then being stressed and worried that that's going to cause problems on its own. So you have to see, there's a whole lack of context here that informs our decision as to whether or whether not to supplement. So mm-hmm. if that helps flesh out this stance, then so be it. But I know we'll get in trouble still for for suggesting that supplements aren't as necessary as we might have thought.
When I look at your YouTube channel, you have videos on almost any topic. I can do a search in the bar on any topic related to fruitarianism. Is there anything interesting you have coming up, or any plans you want to share about?
Yes. So I have two bigger projects that I'm working on right now.
Wow.
The one that is probably going to start, I'll start recording it either today or tomorrow, is I want to go into how to raise children, babies, and how to care for babies, prenatal care, postnatal care, all that kind of stuff. Like I want to really flesh that out. That's something I haven't touched on my channel yet, and that's so
prenatal
important.
Does that mean while pregnant?
Yes, while you're pregnant, right? And we have after pregnancy as well. Wow. So early childhood nutrition and care and lifestyle, and then the postnatal and the prenatal. Yes, while you're pregnant, during the pregnancy, what do you need to do? What do you need to be mindful of? And then, of course, prior to that, right? Prior to the prenatal period, where you are getting ready for pregnancy. So I want to flesh all of that out.
Wow.
And so that's going to be an important one. I also want to get there's a bigger project that I want to get into, which is the vegan agenda, which is something that is going to get me into so much trouble.
Very interesting.
But yeah, I want to. There's the more conspiratorial, and I don't even want to use that word, because that it's the context, the connotation with that, we've created such a silly connotation with the word conspiracy. But there is a very pernicious and deleterious game plan for the direction the world is going into by groups and classes of globalists, elites, people in positions of ostensible authority that want to use the vegan movement to do something and to justify a plan of action that is not in humanity's best interest. And veganism as a movement has been captured in order to do that thing. And it's confusing for people. And I want to flesh that out, what that is and how to go about mitigating it. So that's a project on its own. Those are the two that I'm working on right now that I can't wait to get out, because couldn't be more important.
Well, thank you, Eli. This was an amazing conversation. I got so much out of it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. No, the pleasure is all mine, I assure you. Thank you so much. I really get a lot out of being able to share this type of thing on any platform, whether mine or anyone else's. So I really appreciate you taking a second to reach out and having me on your show here. If people have questions or comments, obviously they can leave them in the comment section below, and we can answer those as they come. And of course, if you have anything else in the future that we want to investigate together, then just let me know, and we'll go for part 2.
Great. Thanks. Have a great Friday.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, you have a wonderful day as well. Everyone out there, we appreciate your kind attention. And yeah, God bless. Love you very much. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you. See you next time.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.